limited time, and I'm going to, sorry, but I'm going to, restrict all of you to 3 minutes on this issue so that we can move on to the very final one. It's about the sanitary parts that are going to be supplied to, so to speak, poor girls in some of our schools. Why do you feel that we may have rushed, or the media was gullible in taking what came out of Parliament immediately, that this was such a bad idea, that we should not be heard to be saying that we are going to the World Bank to borrow, take a loan, and what we are going to do with it is to buy sanitary parts for the girls in a bid to improve, enrollment in schools in girls, because the suggestion is that there's a research that says that they stay out of school when they are menstruating, and either they stay out completely or about some, 6 days or more they don't come to school. Abi?
It's partly because of the minorities' package of this issue and how they delivered it out to the Ghanaian people. They made it look like Ghana was going to take a loan to buy Pampers, and so they even christened it the Pampers loan. That's what they said. Yes, Pampers. They even christened it the Pampers loan. So when you get that information coming out, then the media cannot but also have to feed into it. But you see, basically it is a 156 million World Bank loan, which is geared towards our educational...
It's Ghana Secondary School Education Improvement Project.
Yes, so to improve our educational infrastructure. And 25 of those schools will be built, new ones, and then I think 100 plus will be expanded or refurbished. Now, in designing the project...
15.9 million of that amount is what is going into the sanitary parts.
And I'm coming to that. In designing the project, they realized that, or it came to fall, that most girls drop out or do not attend school or miss classes because of this issue of their menstrual period. So how were we then going to cure the mischief? And you know that policies, programs, projects are put in place to cure a mischief. So if we agree that that was a mischief and that it affected our young ladies who were poor and cannot be given this part, then there was a need to cure it. And that's how come that amount was voted for that. This is akin to our earlier, as a people, our earlier agreement that because school children, school enrollment is falling because children cannot go to school on empty stomach. So we then brought about this school feeding to ensure that children go to school. Then also we know at workplaces, some employers provide free condoms because they think that AIDS has had a wreck on their employment, that's to say their workforce. So they provide free condoms to ensure that these things are curtailed. So if as a nation, and you have alluded to some research, that the schoolgirls are dropping out or are unable to go to school and they miss number of classes hours, then there's a need for us as a people to then cure it. Indeed, there was an MP from Oforukrom, I think so, member of parliament.
Elizabeth Ajman.
Exactly. Who made the call long before this loan issue came up. So for now, to hear people try to poo-poo the project and try to ridicule it, for me, is sad. It's sad. And I think that it's good that now we are having a very decent discourse. People are now saying that, look, it's a good project, but don't use a loan, use our own resources. It is clear that we all now agree that it is a good project. My worry is, how do we manage it and how do we sustain it? And that is where I will call for civil society organizations, religious organizations, and government to come together to ensure the successful implementation of this project.
Okay, Gabi, is it the case that initially we didn't have sufficient information about it? Because as we are told, we are going to, this component is going to school uniforms, is going to sandals, school bags, notebooks, pens and pencils, math sets, and then the sanitary parts and rulers. So it's not as if it's the sanitary parts alone that's been singled out and is being sponsored.
I think that's the point. To me, it's positive that at least our development partners are beginning to re-engage government and to release funds for projects. As you know, after the reckless spending of 2012, they pulled back. I mean, and it's been a big issue. And I'm happy that they're re-engaging. To me, the key thing, and we'll keep saying it, is about value for money. Because I remember in 2012, when the president, I think when he launched their manifesto or so, he brought up a figure around $1.something million for this community secondary schools they were going to build per unit. I understand that now is moving up to about $4 million or so. As if you look at what is in this arrangement, we need to look at those things. I mean, we are not even talking about CDs inflation,
right.
You know, really. So to me, it's about value for money, okay? Because at the end of the day, what is at risk? It's more than just reckless government. If we depend to a point on some support from development partners, let them just demand that the right thing is done with the monies that are given. So that's positive. But beyond that, it tells you something which I find quite sad, really. You know, sometimes this government actually allows, they've made mediocrity seem cool. You know, I never thought I would say this, but actually I miss President Mills. You know, when you look at some of the things that's going on. Look, the World Bank came out, Kofi Chikata, said after the meeting,
they did some rough
education, yes, and that for a year, there's the cost component, the sanitary pad. I think some have called it M-pad, yeah, Mahama pad, rather than iPad. Anyway, the sanitary pad component will be just $15,000 a year.
That's correct.
And you know, I asked myself, so a country that can give away 50 million Ghana cedis over some dubious judgment debt, we can't find $15,000 if you think that this is such a major thing in terms of how it affects some of the girls who go to school in the rural areas. We need to get a loan before we can implement such a thing. You know, so those are the things that worry me. And if you look at this same Oxford, let me just read a bit of the report from Oxford. The report that government itself has been quoting.
Okay.
Just a little bit of it, if you don't mind. He says, after 6 months of free sanitary pad provision, the quantitative results show the girls missed significantly less school than before the test. Okay? Negative experience related to soiling and embarrassment. Oh, God. I think I'll get back to it. But it was an important thing, because what they say, and if I can find it, which I'm sure I'll find it, yes, I think I have found it. Yeah, I found it. The point they were making is that, look, first of all, they talk about, in particular, they're talking about Ghana. We concluded that distributing either sanitary pads or puberty education through the schools was, at least in Ghana, entirely inappropriate because it contributes to the already high risk of in-school sexual abuse when teachers are mostly males.
All right.
You know, so in principle, everybody is for, if like, sanitary pads. But is it the right thing to do in terms of the school doing it?
Okay.
Secondly, they also talk about sustainability. Because at the end of the day, if you introduce them to the pads, it will be difficult for them to go back to whatever they are doing. So what arrangements are being made to make sure that you can sustain it? You know, so to me, those are the issues that we should look at. But I don't think, in principle, everybody's against it. I even think that, you know, schools, sometimes I wonder how borders actually toilet rolls, because I don't think they're provided with toilet rolls.
In Kenya, in Kenya, they have voted quite...
$4 million, yeah?
Yes, $4 million. That's a lot for such a project. Here, what I'm getting is that people are saying, we are not exactly saying it's a bad thing, but it's an embarrassment. That just a week ago or so, the whole world got to know that we can fly as much as, you know, $3 million. You know, to pay our players. And here we are, how much?
$15,000 a year.
A year, and we can't afford, and we are going for a loan to do that for the girls.
I think my worry essentially is the research that informs policy and how decisions are made. That is where, for me, the problem is. How spread is this problem? What's the magnitude of the problem, which has to be defined and determined clearly? I don't think a report by a research team in Oxford alone provides enough basis for policy.
They even admit that it is a limited, very limited.
So that I would have
but
liked,
the ministry to...
excuse me, I would have liked us going further and say, well, this is what they're saying about us. The universities are there. They could quickly, and the Ministry of Education and Health can both get into it. So I assume that government had done all that so that it has to share that information, because if the problem is widespread, then it demands public policy intervention,
right.
One. But two, it also takes us to the point where if it's sanitary pads they require, I think the loans, whatever amount of it, as a loan, makes it very expensive. Probably the costliest of sanitary pads. Because in the long, you're going to pay over a period of time.
Right.
And this is something that they may need all the time. And so I thought that a thorough conversation will show that, well, if it's needed, can we produce it here? Which brings in the sustainability. I thought this could have been easily financed under 15,000 a year under Get Fund. Okay, you don't need a loan, maybe a grant from somewhere. But I thought if the loan had gone into building a factory or seeing how this can be produced here and sustained, so that we now decide that this is a very important.
But it's not a loan that sits on its own.
The fact that it was embedded doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all.
Now,
that whole package could have gone.
I want to go to Kweku briefly, and then I'll come to Dr. Akwete to take the little time that is left on the Constitution Review Commission. Matters arising with that.
I'm there first. That's the most important.
Let's hear you. Yeah.
I'm not sure whether it was the way the minority packaged the issue that initially brought this controversy about. You see, I've checked the Hansard. Only 3 people, really, in fact 4, spoke on this matter. Dr. Osei, listen to what he said. He said, Mr. Speaker, I do not have any problem with them paying for sanitary pads for young ladies. If they cannot afford it, I think it is fair. This is a minority, the ranking member. Okay? So I wonder why you can start accusing the entire minority of something.
Okay.
Then Professor Phoebe, this is what he said. He's against. He says, I also feel strongly that taking a foreign loan to buy sanitary pads, rulers, pens, and pencils, Mr. Speaker, I think is out of place. Why can we not use our own budget to support such a thing? Coincides with what Dr. Akwete is saying. But because these terms and conditions have not been abstracted properly, no, that's not him. He continues. Mr. Speaker, I further suggest that certain items that have been listed as assistance to students for the scholarship should be looked into. This is because some of these items, I think, can be supported by our normal budgets and should not be supported with the loan facility that we are actually taking from outside. Perhaps what became more dramatic was the lady, Ms. Comfort Abra. I think is NPP parliamentary member. Says there are a lot of items in this that people will not take as serious. Going to borrow money, look at what we are going to use the money for. Buying sanitary pads. How do we define people who would need to benefit from this loan? We must be serious. This is not the first time we are going to borrow money to be used for. We must have our worth for the loan. It's very demeaning for a foreigner to see that we are going for a loan to buy sanitary pads. Are we serious? This is the only 3 areas. In fact, the 4th is Gidisu, who was calling the attention to the fact that it happens elsewhere. But these 3 areas, the main issues that were raised was money, the money that had been slated for monitoring, research, and evaluation. Ajimamenu thought that they were going to set up a new entity to drive the scholarship thing when there was a scholarship secretariat. And the point about capacity building. The substantive issues that the minority raised, which then underlined their decision not to support the loan facility, at least when it was approved, had nothing really to do with the sanitary pads. You see, it was let me be honest with you, the electronic media, its initial report, and I don't blame them aside, they picked the voice of the lady who was speaking and put it out there. Unfortunately, the following day, some of the print media outlets also just picked that aspect. So many people really didn't know that the loan had other components, like building of 23 schools, expanding of 75 schools. All those things didn't come out initially. You might find them in the body of the stories, but the headlines told something more dramatic and sensational. So to be honest with you, I think that what should be looked at is the issues that the minority raised in assessing, in deciding not to approve. Some are very major issues. It comes to money for value issues.
Value for money?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. That's what it comes to.
Okay.
The sanitary parts
so
are not
saying that, well, that's not what the girls need, really. And it's not the reason why they are not staying in school key. Or they are dropping out
We
of
can
school.
manufacture these things.
Yeah, but that is what Phoebe was saying. That's what Phoebe was saying.
Right.
But that's what they're doing in Kenya. Their manufacturing is cheaper, and then they have budgetary support for it. Yeah. So it creates jobs. You know.
Yeah. So it's a radical that came in.
Now we have very limited time on the Constitution Review
Commission.
Very important
issue.
Yes, on the Constitution Review Commission, IDEG under the umbrella of the coalition known as the CFIs, you held a symposium.
Yes.
And then you had these two professors of law. You brought them to speak to the issue of the CRIC, that's the Implementation Committee, saying emphatically that the doors are shut. There cannot be additional contributions.
Yeah.
And they came and they were emphatic. They said that position is wrong. It's not. It cannot find expression in law.
Yeah.
So, what happens next?
We're happy we got that legal opinion, and I think it would enrich the debate, because I remember the conversations in this studio, and Kwekubako, for instance, you remember I called in and had said, look, the process is closed and so on. But what they said clearly is that it is only Parliament that has the power to close, and it goes through a certain procedure. And when we said the process cannot be closed by them, what we meant is that it is the Constitution. And you're going to amend about 97 articles in the constitutions, the entrenched and non-entrenched provisions.
41 entrenched.
41 entrenched and 56. And some will require Parliament making the decisions, others a referendum. And we are also living in a dynamic context. There are various things happening that requires that this constitution is so fundamental to addressing many of the problems, those we consider to be structural. So we felt at least Parliament's processes should roll, and that is where they would invite memos, ask people if there are new ideas they'll consider, and so on. So when they said the process was closed, we were quite worried that have they taken over the parliamentary
And your
role
concern also is that at this stage, we do not know, and it appears that what the drafts that the CRC presented are not the ones we are going to be invited to vote on. But it appears that there is a new draft which was hijacked by the cabinet, which is basically the cabinet white paper.
Yes, and I think
that's wrong.
The problems, that is wrong, because you get the impression that CRIC focused more on the white paper.
Right.
Okay, but then the CRC itself raised a lot of issues and proposals that I think they felt the public would deserve, or a constituent assembly, or even Parliament will consider each proposal and make the decisions required with further inputs.
Right.
But that was shut. So now, what they've said is the parliamentarians who were there, the deputy majority leader, and I think a former ranking member of the committee, parliamentary legal and constitutional affairs, said no, Parliament will play its roles fully. The problem, however,
and
is that
if Parliament is disallowed,
they'll go
the
to
minority,
court. Yes, will go to court if Parliament can. But then the professor said, no, Parliament, we shouldn't read Article 290 literally. But Parliament can play its roles because there are other articles supporting the roles they play in there.
Okay.
So they've opened the door. I think what is needed now is that all these things can be done in 6 months. We learned from the parliamentarians that the bill has not been gazetted, and it has to be within gazetted for 6 months
Okay.
before Parliament gets in.
Doc, I'm sorry,
Okay.
and forgive me. What we have to do is that
come back next week.
Yes, we need to
this.
look at this issue because it's very central.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And very, very, I don't know if I say it's a cynical comment. It says that on the sanitary part, will government also provide free underwear? Because without that, they can't wear the pad. Okay, thank you very much, all of you. Yes, we are told, not the NDC specifically, but
well, he was
one of its...
He was speaking at their manifesto lunch.
That's Kokwa Idaho.
Yeah, he was speaking at their manifesto lunch.
This has been Newsfile, your most authoritative news analysis show. I'm Samson Ladia Yanini. My guests have been Abdul Malik Kwekubaku Jr., who is the editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. Earlier, you heard us speak to Moses Asaga, who is the CEO of the National Petroleum Authority. And then Dr. Emmanuel Akwete is Executive Director of the Institute for Democratic Governance, IDEC. Gabi Asare Ochredak, who is a business consultant and a former Executive Director of the Dankwa Institute. Also, Abraham Amalba. He is a law lecturer, he's a practitioner, and with the NDC legal team. Have a good afternoon. The news is up next.